All right, so I think we'll get started here. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's webinar. It is on CTC's BIM Project Suite tools. And the topic is going to be plumbing code calculations with Spreadsheet Link and Schedule XL. Just a quick introduction. My name is Patrick Simic from SolidCAD. I am a technical consultant on the AEC team. And today I'm here to kind of show you how we could utilize a couple different tools from the CTC BIM Project Suite, Spreadsheet Link and Schedule XL, so we could utilize within our project workflows. Today's learning objectives, we're going to see how we can create a repeatable workflow. So if, as I'm going to create the specific, say, spreadsheet link settings, some Excel files, saving those settings that we could use from project to project. Producing reusable Excel spreadsheets. So as I mentioned, it's going to be part of the repeatable workflow, seeing how we can create Excel files that can be then used for other products as we move forward. Using Excel for calculations. So we're going to see internally and also externally how you could use Excel within your Revit project using the Spreadsheet Link tool. And then finally, importing and exporting Excel information from Revit to Excel and then vice versa. So what we'll see today, so right now, just a screenshot, we're going to be opening up the Spreadsheet Link tool that is, again, part of the CTC BIM Project Suite. So this is just a screenshot of some of the things that we may see. As we could already visually see within this view, in the background, we kind of have like an Excel format being shown within the Revit environment, which we're going to utilize to kind of help automate some of our functionality. Here's just an Excel file that we see here, as we can manually kind of input or graphically kind of even have the visual styles of this Excel file. How can we automate this specific Excel file with information coming from Revit? And then also, how can we place it back into our projects from an Excel file itself? So that's where we're going to come in hand using the Schedule XL file. So I'm going to go through the demo today, a live demo here. At the end of the demo, we could stop by and have a few questions there. So let's just jump right into the demo. Let me just go into my Revit environment. So from here, today what we're going to be doing is we're going to do some plumbing code calculations. So what we're going to be aiming for to do is, if I go starting with my floor plan, as I zoom in to one of my locations here, we could see we have rooms, or again, you could also use spaces. I have the size of the room, and if I select the room itself, in the properties, we have some information. In the properties on the left, as we could see, we have the area of the room, and then we also have an area per person. So I want to find out, based off of the room size, how is an area per person then divided up, and how can we kind of see how many people will be designated into that space or into that room that we are working with, and then utilizing it for some kind of plumbing code calculation. How many, or how can we gather all that information throughout our whole, say, floor plan? How many water closets are needed, or how many urinals, how many plumbing fixtures are going to be needed? So that's kind of the information that we want to kind of build up and utilize throughout today's webinar. So as I select this room, if I look into the properties, we have area already being calculated directly from Revit. So that is already some data that we could extract and utilize for our formulas. I have created also an area per person. So this is a project parameter that I input based off of the type of room that it is, how many, say, square feet a person should have part of it within the location. So my goal here is, with the area of my room, the area per person, I want to find out what that value is going to be for that specific space. And then as I calculate the whole floor itself, I could then utilize an Excel file to kind of figure out how many water closets are going to be needed to be divided up within our location. The room data that's being inputted here is also being driven by another parameter, or a key schedule occupancy category. So if I were to click the drop down from here, we could already see some predefined room types. If I click corridor as an example, we'll start to see the area per person start to change. If I go back to classroom, we also start to see those values kind of work through. With that said, we also want to find out, this is the final value we want to see, the occupancy. How many people per that room are going to be placed? inside of that location. So what we could use and leverage here is the tool Spreadsheet link from the BIM project suite. So if I go to my tab here at the top where we have our CTC tools, in the CTC BIM product suite, the green icons that we have our Spreadsheet link tool. So I'm going to jump by clicking this tool here. Spreadsheet link, it kind of is like a direct Excel file formatting link inside of our projects. And as I open up my location here, this is the dialog box that we're going to be using. On the left side, we can see the available categories as needed. As I click the dropdown, we could even go to specific schedules. But since this is going to be a repeatable workflow, I want to save out the elements that I'm going to be creating. So I'm going to actually be starting from scratch, creating my own custom schedules or custom files. So with the category then selected, I'm going to scroll down and select my rooms category, double clicking into here. Once I select that category, it's now going to populate all of the different parameters that are associated with that specific category. So some of the categories that I'm going to want to bring in is what level are my rooms on, bringing that inside of there. What is the area of my room? What is the area per person? So again, that custom parameter. And my occupancy. If I come down here, there is again my custom parameter. If I look now in the back of my Spreadsheet link tool, so we got that Excel format in here. Here we now could see we have our levels in place. We have our area per that room, area per person, which I've inputted based off of the type of room that it is. And then we have the occupancy. So inside of Spreadsheet link, what you could do is we could just use an Excel value. So if I come into occupancy and I click equals here, I could do 1 + 1, enter, and we can see a value being placed in. With these values, we could kind of continue that throughout the occupancy. But what I'm really looking for is what is the area divided by the area per person? And that's the value that I want to populate. So with that kind of said, gonna get out of here. If I were to come into the space and I select equals, the area divided by my area per person and enter, we're gonna see kind of a null value up here. Inside of the Excel format, we're now seeing that what's trying to be divided is not only the number, but we also have some lettering. We have the square footage. With the Spreadsheet link tool, what we can do, I'm just going to remove that value. As I go back into my settings, to have our values unitless, so again, Revit can organize and read it as just number values, there is an option inside of your Spreadsheet link to hide unit symbols. And here it's going to say it's going to redo the symbols. I'm going to click yes. As I jump back into my Spreadsheet link, now we can see we have whole numbers, a lot easier for us to work with. With this, going to now do the same thing. Going to use that dividing formula. Equals 439 divided by my area per person equals 43.9. With this value here, we do want to repeat that all the way through. So one of the nice settings that we could also have inside of Spreadsheet link, if I go back to my settings and I look at the values that I have in place, where I see occupancy, I could check on that value. And if I go back into my spreadsheet itself, we can now see it populates that same formula throughout the rest of my cells. So instead of repeating it and dragging it down, you just have the ability to kind of just check it on inside of your settings. And now we have that repeatable sequence throughout my whole location. Along with this, I also do not want a 43 point and 0.9 of a person or 0.2. I actually want whole numbers. So I'm going to add a little bit more, say, value or more complexity to the formula. So inside of the formula, I do want to round up my values so I could have a correct unit. So I'm just going to come into here, type in round up. And we're going to do again the area divided by area per person, and then giving it a whole value. And now we can see we have whole values as what we are looking for here. So those are the settings that I'm kind of looking for to kind of calculate the occupancy, the area that is calculated, area per person, and then giving that final value of how many people per that location I will have. I'm going to save the setting. So again, I'm going to come back and utilize this as I move forward. So I'm going to come back into my location here. I'm going to go here, save these settings that I had. So I'm just going to go to Save Settings to a file, and I'll just do my desktop for now. And this will be my plumbing fixture calcs. And I'm going to save that sequence. With that, I'm just going to close out of my sheets over here, and I'm going to reopen Spreadsheet link. So one of the things that I want to do here is I have already a pre-assembled Excel file that has my plumbing code calculations. I'm going to open that directly inside a Spreadsheet link. Just look for this here. Click in here, and as I open it, there is my specific link that I had created. So with this link that I have already in place, if I were to select one of my cells, I could see I do have some kind of values already being calculated. So if I go to occupancy, I could type in 100. We could start to see the values change, type in 350. So we do have calculations already being created. And then again, just some formulas within here. There's your female ratio, one water closet per 75 people, and then the male ratio, 1 water closet per 100. So with these values that I am inputting here, we could see it is automating that process, but still with a manual input. What I am looking for to do here is I want to automate this by utilizing that previous calculation tool that I had, taking that information from my project and inputting that information into this specific table. So with my spreadsheet right now open, I'm going to go back into my settings here. I'm going to load those previous settings that I just had. So I'm going to click Load Settings. I'm going to populate where we had our plumbing fixture calcs. I'm going to open that option here. It will populate those exact same values that I just previously had. And if I go back to the spreadsheet, we now have two different tabs. I have my Rooms tab, and I also have the Excel format that it has. So it's populating and kind of combining now those two values in place. A couple more things that I need to do here is I actually want to have another tab for levels, because I want that information, level 1, level 2, level 3, to be picked up somehow within my project and then placed within kind of the calculation portions. So I'm going to add another tab here with my level category. Come into my location. I'm going to select levels. Going to select now, once I have my levels, I'm going to say what is the level name, what is the level elevation, and if it's a building story or not. So if I come back here we could see the different level names that we have in place. We can see the building elevation that we have, and we also see if it's a building story. Just like inside of Revit, you could filter out your elements. So if I do not want to see my parapet, since it's not a building story, not going to be useful in my calculations, I could go into my settings and utilize my sorting and grouping as, filtering out my category called building story. If it is true, then we could filter it out. A nice thing about the spreadsheet link tool is, unlike Revit, where you have to have that category or that field part of your schedule, Spreadsheet link, I could take out even building story. It'll still pick up that value to filter out and utilize that inside of my project. So again, another great thing to utilize here. Don't have to have the actual fields or categories in your schedule. They're still there available for you to use. So with my second schedule here, what I do want to happen now is as I start with my naming conventions, I want the naming conventions of my levels to be associated back to what I have over here. As that gets picked up, I want to find out all of the ones on that specific level, pick up all the occupancies and combine them together. So what I'm going to have from here is if I go back to my actual schedule. So where I have level 1, I wanted to pick up a specific naming convention. So once I click into level 1 here, I'm going to do a formula. And I'm going to say, let's index so as I have index, I'm going to go back to levels. I'm going to select multiple levels in place. So let it be, I'm going to select this drop down. As many levels as I want, I could place inside of that specific location. I'll go back into here. So again, picking up from that list of different indexes that I have in place. And also I want this to pick up that first value. And when I hit enter, oops. Did that one wrong here. Equals index. Let me go back here. Levels. Pick up my levels documentation. Pick up the first value. And there is my entry level 1. So notice that's the first index from my levels tab, which is number 1 here. If I copy and paste that specific value, so I'm going to come into here, copy that down to my other levels, click enter. Since it's not 0 entry level 1, I want it to be my second index. I'm going to type in 2. And I'll continue that format, working my way down since now I'm looking for the third index, 3. And if I had a fourth one, which I do not have in this specific project, or actually it would have the roof one. I do not have a basement, so we're not going to be utilizing that option there. But as we start to see, it now is automatically populating those level names based off of the levels inside of my spreadsheet link. So as we start populating that specific options that we have there, now I want to pick up the occupancy. So from my rooms tab, I want to know all of my 0-1 entry level rooms, all their occupancy values that we have here, and calculate them. So sum them up. So still within my Excel file that I have here, if I click into the occupancy, I'm going to create another formula. So I'm going to say equals if the sum if, so sum if, and we're going to have, going to go here, if the sum if on my rooms from the C tab. So from that C tab, if, so the sum if of rooms from the C tab. If I go back here, oops, gotta go here. Gonna select now if it's going to equal my 0-1 entry level, A6 that I have in place, then I want it to sum all of my occupancies. And I'll close the bracket. So here now we can see it picked up all of those occupancies based off of my rooms tab, every single 0-1 entry level room. All those occupancies are now then being added up and then being displayed within my location here. So if I start copying that cell again, so if I select this option here, copy this one to my next occupancy, the only thing I'm just going to change is now it's not going to be A6 that it's reading, it's going to be A8. We can start seeing that populating. If I come over here, we'll do the same thing, and this should be the A10. So here we can start to see now the population of all of the occupancies based off of the rooms, the data then that was calculated, area divided by area per person, and then bringing it into our schedule. And then we do have those formulas being driven by just some basic formulas, as we see here, just rounding up D6 divided by 100, again, based off of that ratio, gives me that specific value as needed. So this is going to be my kind of say starting point as a template that I want this to be a repeatable workflow. So with our Excel file that we started off with, we had our categories from Spreadsheet link that we leveraged to push information back to this location. I'm going to save this Excel file as say my template file, which I could then use further to a new project. So I'm going to save this, let it be to my desktop, and this could be again my plumbing fixture, let's just say template. So I'm going to save it as the plumbing fixture template. Spreadsheet link will ask you, do you want to open it inside of Excel? So I'm going to say, sure, why not? I'm going to click yes. And here we'll start to see our spreadsheet start to open. So one of the things I want to do here is if I want to make this a repeatable workflow, not all projects are the same. You have different amount of levels, you have different rooms, you have different area per persons, so things start to change. So if I were to go back to my rooms and levels within this tab, I kind of want to wipe out some of the information that I have from our Excel. So again, not too sure how many rooms we're going to have, not too sure how many levels we're going to have. So with that, since this is going to be a template file that can be repeated multiple times throughout a project, I'm going to wipe out the information that I have. One of the things is once you export or save an Excel file from Spreadsheet Link, it is protected. So what we just need to do here is to unprotect the sheet. And as it is unprotected now, I could select one of my cells, go to the very bottom. Let's clear my content. That is removed. And I'm also going to fill it, just say with no fill. And if I didn't want any borders, I'll say no borders. So now we just have a clean slate. I do not want to delete these top areas here because those are the ones that Spreadsheet Link will start to utilize and use to start calculating for once you start bringing it into your different projects. Gonna do the same thing for my levels. Let me just unprotect this. Select from here down to the bottom. And I'm going to clear contents. Let's do a no fill and no borders. There we go. So with this is now going to be my template file that I can use within my projects that I start moving forward. So let me just save this one. This will be my template, but I'll just say final. I'm going to click save, have that now in place. So again, we should not have any values here placed already. No values in rooms, no values also in levels. I'm going to close out of my Excel file. As I go back into Revit, I'm actually going to close out of here. And one of the things that I will do is I'm going to create a save setting. So the next time I run a specific process or like the advanced save settings, I wanted to pick up that template file. So when I go to save settings, you can create an advanced save. So it can look for that template file and utilize that as a starting point. So when I go to advanced save, here we can see to a file, specify a template, and we already had that template we just created. So I'm going to click inside of here, go back to my desktop. There is my final template. Here we now have it in place. Going to save this template, and this will be my, let's call it my plumbing code fixture counts. That's going to be the name of my template, and I'm going to save this. Save this here, successfully saved. Going to close out a Spreadsheet Link. So right now, as we see, we do not have any information still stored. I never pushed any data yet. I haven't done anything. I just set up my Excel file and also my settings the way that I want it. So what I'm looking for here is for Spreadsheet Link to automate area divided by area per person, put that inside of my occupancy and give me a value. So with that, let's run the tool again. I'm going to go back to Spreadsheet Link. I created that advanced save. So I'm going to go to load settings from a file. There is counts. There is my final option. When I click open, you will see in the background, it has opened my tab, that original Excel file I had, but now it notices I have levels and rooms as another category previously from there. So it says it has found something. You want it to override with the information from your project. And I say yes. Click that option here, retrieving that data, and same thing goes for rooms. So as I jump back in here, levels have been picked up. Come back here, rooms have been picked up. And since I've already created that Excel file and I've updated it with the proper calculations, as I click back inside of here, we can see those calculations have automated. If it was a separate project, it will do the same thing. It will start to update based off of how we have set this up. So with this now in place that we have, if I go back to my rooms location, I want to push that information back to my project. So if I can just shift this over here, here we have a room tag. I'm going to apply this works sheet, click OK, click yes, give it a few seconds. And now we can see 91 elements have been updated. And I'm going to hit close. And we can see in the background that room has that new option. With my Excel file here, I'm still going to save this file out because again, it's project specific. So I'm going to save this Excel file and let it be for my demo webinar Excel. That's what I'm going to be calling, because this is something I still want to place on into my views or onto my sheets. So I'm going to save my Excel file. I'm not going to be reopening it. Just going to click no. And now we have that information saved. As the information gets updated, you could open this file again, run through that information, and it starts to populate it. I'm going to close out of it. So I'm going to click close, closing out of here. No need to save those settings. And we're back into my view. As I work through, here we can see now that information has been populated throughout all of my spaces. If I click one of my rooms, or sorry, spaces, we'll see now the occupancy has been updated with that value based on the calculations that have been given. So the final thing to kind of round trip over here is now that Excel file. I want to have that onto a sheet. So if I come into one of my locations here, there is my floor plan. This time around, I'm going to use what's called Schedule Excel. This takes your Excel files, however you have it formatted, however you have it being calculated, and then creates either a drafting view or a schedule view that you can place onto your sheets. So when I click Schedule Excel, give this a moment or two to open, I'm going to add that Excel file that I just saved, which had all that information that I have created. I'm going to select Add. Here we're just going to open that Excel file, desktop. There is my demo webinar Excel. Click open from here. There we have now that information. At the bottom, we have the different tabs. So if you had different, say, code calculations or different methods, you could have multiple tabs here at the bottom. Whichever ones you want, you can select individually or multiple at a time. Since I only have one type, I'm going to do the active worksheet. There are settings that you can preset. So again, some graphical settings of your values here. Maybe I'll just do auto fit. And then once we have those here, going to click OK. And just give me one more, just so I know. There, Z Excel, so I know where to find it. I'm going to be creating a schedule view. Once completed, going to click OK. Going to give it a few seconds, saves it. Here we could see the file that has been loaded. If it was out of date, we would have that status option. Here's an auto update option, or you could always have it just as a manual. But now we've created that schedule. As I click the X, here's now the schedule that I've created. In my project browser, it is a separate schedule view. Back onto my sheet, I could take that schedule, drop it into place where it needs to be, and now we have that schedule. So a little bit of graphical options there that have been updated, but as we could see, from the starting point of an Excel file that just had manual input data, it kind of helped automate it through Spreadsheet link, get that information moving through. As that information updates, so if I come through here, and maybe I take a few of these rooms and I change the types of rooms that they are. We'll give this a go, see how we could do this. So if I take this category and I say they're dining for some apparent reason, or maybe dining won't do a big difference. Food preparation. So now those values should change based off the calculation options. If I go back into Spreadsheet link, I'm going to open that previous Excel file, demo webinar, have that here. Did we see any slight changes? Not too sure if I just saw any here. Should have populated. So if I go back here, yeah. So if we have that back in place, we could push data back, apply the active worksheet. So I guess we're going to run it here. Actually, I'll open the new settings. Load settings from file. Going to use my plumbing code count settings. Runs through. I'm going to say yes. Utilize those new values. Have those in place. So again, now we have the rooms. We have the new options here. If I go back to rooms, we should be able to apply our new settings. So again, there are the new changes, the 3 changes to those rooms that I've just had in the background. This is a new document. So with this document, I'm going to actually save over my demo webinar Excel, because there are new values now in place. With those new values running through that calculation again, if I close out of here, we know our Excel file that we placed is probably going to be out of date. We come back into Schedule Excel, add a date here in place. Just going to select Update. Maybe we'll see some changes happen here. Update the file, and here we could have those changes being created. So with that, as we saw, we could use an Excel file that we've created. We could then leverage Spreadsheet link to create different tabs, different categories, and calculate values in a different way that we could push into our Excel files. With that Excel file, we could then have it use Schedule Excel to kind of convert it into a, say, schedule or a drafting view or a schedule that we could place onto our sheets. So with that, in conclusion, leverage spreadsheet link for automated calculations, as we saw, to help automate the area per person, and then give an occupancy rounded to the nearest person. You could save Excel settings and Excel files for a repeatable workflow. Use Schedule Excel to import Excel spreadsheets into Revit, and then also rerun calculations and update the data. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. My name is Patrick Simic, technical consultant for the AEC team. My email is patrick.simic@solidcad.ca. And yeah, gonna be open here for any questions that we may have. Just gonna give a few moments here for everyone to ask any questions. Yeah, so there's a question here about roof draining. So it's just more, well, it's all about the areas. It's how, well, if you're using rooms or spaces, it's a way that would have to be calculated based off of those values, and then you could push that data to let it be a specific family. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into a little bit more here. If you want to send me an email there, again, which is patrick.simic@solidcad.ca, I can kind of just go back here to have that. I could take that offline since it's a little bit more of a exact question. Yeah, so if we have no other kind of questions here, once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. It will be posted online, so again, you can review it, and feel free to send me an email with any other questions that you may have. Again, patrick.simic@solidcad.ca. Thank you, everyone.